Not too bad. How are you getting on with Zoom interviews? This is kind of new for me
Yeah,
too.
Jesus.
We did a lot of them for the London Film Festival the other day, and it was interesting to get a peek into everybody's house. But we decided to come into the studio and be a bit more professional today. You know, we said like, geez, that was a long day sitting in our little home offices. So yeah, it feels a bit more official now.
No, I appreciate the plants. I really,
The
really
twin
gives.
Keith Burns.
Oh, very clever. I see what happened there. Well, first of all, congrats on the movie. I absolutely adored it.
Great.
One of the reasons why I think I enjoyed it so much is because it actually took me back to when I would watch animated movies when I was younger and found them a little bit traumatizing because I've noticed that like animated movies of late, they could be very safe for kids,
Yeah,
and
a
I
bit
think
saccharine.
a little bit of trauma goes a long way. Because you know when you think of the saddest movies, it's like Bambi or The Land Before
Yeah.
Time. You know, stuff where you're
Mhm.
like, huh, as a
Yeah,
child.
even the Lion King, when there's that
Exactly,
sort of
yeah.
close in there.
I was wondering, like, is that a tricky balance to strike when you're making kids for or making movies for families? You know, for everyone, but also, you know, there are going to be young kids coming to see it, and there is like some tetchy stuff in there.
It's a definite responsibility, Rory, you know, and like for me, when we first set up the studio, we knew we wanted to go in a different direction visually, but it has evolved over the years that we realized we really want to make movies that have a little bit more depth to them, like Bambi or Land Before Time, or the films we grew up on, because, you know, there's plenty of great fun, you know, sort of toy commercial type cartoons out there for little ones. And it's good to offer something different. If you're going to make something independently and it's going to take 5 or 6 years of your life, you kind of have to bring a little bit more to the table, you know.
Sure.
It's hard to
Yeah,
get them off the ground, you know.
but like even the kids' books that I remember really enjoying, like Roald Dahl and Tom McCaughern, they had a darkness to them. They had a danger there, and they had like real stakes. And he wasn't afraid to go. Like neither of those authors were afraid to go into dark places. And I think, like even if you look at like kids' fables, like the Brothers Grimm and all that, like there's a darkness there. There has to be a danger to make it exciting. And as you say, a lot of modern stories are afraid to go into those places, and they become too safe, and there's no danger and there's no stakes anymore.
They just become like babysitter movies. I remember Tom Younger was a fantastic cartoonist and children's book illustrator. He's based down in Cork, and he always talked about that kids actually need stories to help prepare them. You know, it's almost part of the responsibility of a storyteller for kids to kind of, you know, do a little test run of how hard the real world is going to be in their stories. You know.
Well, when it came to like picking the story you wanted to tell, like people are referring to this as the end of the Irish myth trilogy. Like when it came to this particular story, I guess what was your in? Like, what was the point where you're like, this is the one with like all the stories you could have told. This was the one you wanted to tell right now.
Yeah, we kind of came to it circuitously. We were talking over lunch, and we knew we wanted to deal with like environmental themes, species extinction, and the fact that the world was becoming so polarized that, you know, people aren't able to see things from the other person's point of view. And of course, the transformation idea really helps, because if you get transformed into the enemy, the person you're hunting or the creature you're hunting, then you're going to see the world from another point of view. And at the time, we'd seen a documentary called Wolfland that was about this time period in Ireland when Ireland was so known for wolves that it was called Wolfland, you know, and the fact that Cromwell had deliberately tried to eliminate the wolves to show that he had the country under control. So those are the ideas that are floating around. And then I remembered the folklore from around here, the Kenny and Leash, the wolves of Ossory, which are kind of lesser known folk tales that about, you know, people that could transform into wolves that had, but they were kind of like guides or like kind of good, where they weren't monsters that were ravaging. They were like wolves that people would encounter on their travels that would lead them home if they were lost and stuff. So I thought that was those are two interesting things to kind of stir up, and that's where we got the idea of a little English kid coming over with their dad to hunt wolves, and then ending up making friends with one of the wolves, you know, who's actually one of these Wolfwalkers, you know.
When I get like, okay, this is like something that when I was watching it, it immediately came to mind with the casting of Simon. Um, is it difficult to approach English or British actors and have them play kind of an English or British villain,
Yes.
especially in an Irish movie? Because I think an Irish audience will have like almost a genetic reaction to disliking the English people coming over and ruining Ireland back in the day. So is that a hard pitch for an English actor to do that character?
Well, Simon actually, before he even knew about Wolfwalkers, he had met was it Dara at the premiere of The Breadwinner, and he said that he really wanted to work with Cartoon Saloon sometime, you know, and do a voice potentially. So like he is like an amazing actor, like RADA trained and been in some amazing films. So I think when we presented him with the idea of playing Cromwell, he just saw it as a challenge, and you know he didn't want to portray Oliver Cromwell as just a very two-dimensional villain. You know, like he wanted to get into the idea that Cromwell at the time thought that it was his God-given duty to civilize these savage lands, you know, and he thought he was doing a good thing, whether we think it or not, you know, but he himself thought that he was on some kind of divine mission to, you know, to civilize these, you know, like savages and that. So you know, he wasn't being bad just for the sake of being bad. So I think Simon got into that side of Cromwell, and he's like a character actor. So he spent like a good couple of hours sitting down with us and presenting us with his version of the Cromwell that he wanted to play, and see if we were on the same page. So it was really interesting experience to work with such a professional actor. You
know? One of the ancient rules of filmmaking is like try not to work with kids and animals. And your film has both kids and animals in it. Now, I don't know what your recording process was for the growls for the wolves. Maybe you went out to a local forest and just got them yourself. But Honor and Ava are so fantastic in this. Their performances are so layered and emotional and brilliant. Like, what is the casting process for kids that young? Like, do you know immediately when they come in and read, or have you heard them beforehand? Because it really is, you don't get that good performances from kids that young. It just doesn't seem humanly possible.
Yeah, I always joke that I've been lucky over the course of the 20 years in the 3 features that I've directed or co-directed, that there's always been some child born around the right time that we're writing the film. That's the right age by the time we have to record it. We have gotten lucky 3 times in a row. Maybe we should quit while we're ahead. We worked with Louise Keeley as casting director, and she got audition tapes from all over England for the part of Robin. And there was so many talented young people, but Honor just, you know, popped off the screen in her audition tape. She almost took the physical, you know, mannerisms of the character that we had in mind. And she did such a convincing Northern English accent that we actually thought she was from Sheffield or somewhere, but she's actually from Cambridge, I think. But she was very experienced. She had a show reel going back to when she was like 5 or 6. And so we knew she was brilliant. And we were actually just like, make sure we get her, like, you know. And then looking for Maeve, we needed a little bit more of an untested talent. And there was a lot of talented young Irish kids that we got audition tapes from. But then we met Ava a couple of times because she just stood out. Even though she didn't have huge acting experience, she was only 8 or 9, I think, when we met her. But yeah, over the course of a few rehearsals and a few like test runs, she came out of herself. And God, like, she would have us in tears and stuff. I would actually be scared to be her parent, because she's such a good actor. I can imagine what devilment she'll get away with as a teenager.
Yeah, especially when she was like crying her eyes out, you know, as the part of Maeve, and then she would turn around and be all this bubbly, like, how is that? How is that? And we just thought it was like she was possessed or something. But yeah, the growls and the roars were the worrying thing, because like it could literally ruin her voice if she did it too long, or if we pushed too hard. So we did a lot of the softer acting up front in the day, and then left the growls and the roars till the end of the day. But yeah, we were worried that she would just become hoarse and then she wouldn't be able to do anymore. But she has this huge energy about her. For such a tiny little person, she has this huge energy. So she put all that into the roars, you
know. Like kind of a wide-ranging question. One of the things I've noticed, especially in the last 5 years, is how far along Irish filmmaking seems to have become, especially in an international market. It does seem like the world is now paying more attention to everything that we're doing, both in terms of TV and in movies, come to think of it. From your perspective, on the other side, you know, from the filmmaking side, have you noticed a drastic change or improvement in the talent or the ability to get our stuff out there to the world?
Yeah, I think our star has been rising internationally to the point where I do think definitely in animation, which I'm more au fait with. All the main broadcasters, when you go to any of the festivals or anything, are looking to what Irish studios are bringing now. They're expecting to see something good from Ireland, and there's a nice kind of friendly rivalry where everyone's bringing their A game and trying to outdo each other every year. And I mean, I remember when I first started going to pitching festivals like the Cartoon Movie and Cartoon Forum, and the Irish studios were definitely in the minority. And now some years you see like a third of the projects are coming from Irish studios, and they're always packed out when they have a pitch, because there's so many good studios and there's such a like kind of legacy at this stage that people are building on talent that was, you know, kind of matured back in the day in the Don Bluth or Jimmy Murakami days, or even more recently in Brown Bag or in our place, and then they're setting up their own studio. So it's really growing.
Yeah, I mean, like for a small island, like we've historically been really amazing at producing top quality like artists of all genres, you know, like the musicians that have come out of Ireland and the writers and the playwrights and everything. So, you know, I think it's, again, it's another note for the governments to not cut arts funding, because like the weight that we carry, you know, as a small island worldwide from the arts is just phenomenal. So keep on supporting it, Mr. Government.
Absolutely.
I do think in particular, like the French and Italian and those kind of countries that had a longer tradition of animation have been shocked how quickly Ireland has come up to the table and become a, you know, regular partner in all their productions.
Yeah. And one final question. I would be absolutely shocked if this doesn't get an Oscar nomination. So it's a question for both of you, really. Ross, let's say all cards on the table, everything works out, and we can get to LA for the Academy Awards. Ross, what are you most excited about the potential of going to the ceremony? And Tom, from previous nomination visits, has there been one person who you've been properly starstruck having met them?
For me, I think probably one of the more exciting things about it would be actually being able to travel, you know. Yeah, I think like in all the films I've been involved in before, like as art director or concept designer or visual development or anything, I haven't really been a representative of the film, you know. So I think in order, like with this, if we did get nominated for award and I was able to stand up there and like you know, actually represent all the hundreds of people that worked on it, I think I'd be very proud. I think I'd be very excited and proud on their behalf, you know. Like I don't know, for me, like being a director is more like being almost like a spokesman or a representative, or as Tom says, a cheerleader for all these people behind, in that like it's not our film, it's like it's a collection of so many people. So I think if I was put on stage or whatever, or like, you know, to represent it, I think that's what I'd be most excited and proud about.
I'm the drugs and, you know, money.
It's Hollywood, baby. It's Hollywood.
Yeah, come on.
Big bag of cocaine.
You were asking me about people, and the funny thing is I met so many of my animation heroes, even like Hayao Miyazaki and Takahata and stuff at the awards before. But I did have a little nerdgasm when I met Michael Keaton, because I was super Batman, the 1989 movie fan. That was like a big thing for me. And I got to chat to him, and I found out that he's about the same height as me. So I was like, I'm the same height as Batman. I'm not so short after all.
Well, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Finding out you're the same height as Batman is like the peak. Tom and Ross, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Have a good day.